Welcome to another episode of Talking Smack with Andrew M. Odom, where we talk about building communities, building trust, and building business. And sometimes a whole lot more. Okay, so I'm here today with Stephen Harrell, who is better known for, or most known for, tiny house listings. He's also got a number of other websites that we're going to talk about, but more than that, he's an online entrepreneur and has learned to use social media and the internet to his benefit. So we're going to talk to him a little bit about that today. So, Stephen, did I miss anything about your introduction? Is there some part of your enterprise that I somehow have forgotten?
You nailed it, man. I think you got it. It's mostly online websites and social media.
Awesome. Now, what's interesting about that, I think, is probably that you didn't go to a tech school or some sort of Tony Robbins program about embracing yourself or anything like that, and you didn't study under Guy Kawasaki learning how to manipulate Twitter and all that. You really, well, where did you go after high school? What got you this far? Have you always been playing around with the computer?
I think the main thing is I grew up really poor, and I always told myself, man, there's no matter what I do, I'm going to make sure I'm not poor because it sucks. So, I remember the first business I ever owned actually was in sixth grade, where I rode the bus and I would get big bags of sugar and divvy them up into Ziploc bags, and then put Kool-Aid in there and mix it together and sell it to kids on the bus for like 50 cents a piece.
Nice.
So once I made the profit, I'm like, ding, 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 ding. Okay, I see what's going on now. I can take this anywhere I want to. So I that's where it all started.
Gotcha. So you've always had kind of that entrepreneur spirit. You've always wanted to know how to turn something into an enterprise.
Yeah, because in my opinion, it sucks to work for someone else and do the majority of the work and then get only a slice of the pie. To me, that's not the American dream. They're not even remotely close.
Right. So when did you first? I remember when I first discovered Facebook and figured out that I could connect with these people all over the place. But was that kind of your start as well? Facebook, and then that led into other things.
Yeah, with Tiny House Listings was really the first business I ever owned, because I owned quite a few businesses in the past where I really started working social media, figuring out how things work and how to have them share and make things go viral or somewhat viral. And so once I started realizing that, then I started understanding, taking little pieces away from what I've done wrong in the past, and then trying to mix those as much as I can for everything that I'm currently doing in the future.
Right. Now, let me ask you this. When you started out with social media, was there something that impressed you the most about it? Like, was there something that stuck out to you that said, you know what, this is a business like no other. The business model is something very different.
Yeah, I think the ability, because in the past, I've heard this analogy before, but only a few people could reach a large audience. And now it's a lot of people can reach a large audience. And so just from a thought, from an idea, from a small business, you started in in my example, my $1,000 backyard office. You can reach a large audience, especially if the service you're offering benefits people and has a lot of value.
Yeah, and I'm most impressed by the fact that with social media, it's like it's minimum investment. You really don't have to have a huge investment. You don't have to have a bricks and mortar storefront and a lot of inventory and that sort of stuff. Really, people they latch onto you because of who you are or because of what you say, and because of that, you become kind of a Pied Piper into a brand.
Yeah, different platforms are evolving and going by the wayside. New ones are emerging. To me, the best example of that now is Facebook. When you say it's cheap, you can do it for next to nothing. That's becoming less and less true, in my opinion, especially for the tiny house realm that I'm in. I work Facebook a lot, but to be be honest with you, I'm becoming less and less impressed with it, and it seems like less and less of a priority to make that audience grow. I'd rather take what I have there and move it to other platforms, because Facebook, especially since they went IPO, they've been completely greedy.
Yeah, I agree. I'm actually really I'm surprised that more people haven't jumped ship to Google Plus, since so many people are enamored with Google tools to begin with. I know that it doesn't have the same visual that Facebook does, and it's a little more linear in terms of just that news feed running down. But at the same time, I'm surprised more people haven't jumped ship. It's still very free. It's still very communicative, and you still have all the same features that you have on Facebook.
I think a lot of people have never really been able to wrap their heads around it. For example, this Hangout we're about to go on, I went to the link that it sent me when you set it up, and there was you had to send a separate link to get on the Hangout. So they're kind of all over the place. They haven't, like Facebook, the page is there, and what you see is what you get.
Yeah, it is. It has definitely got its shortcomings. I mean, it's not as intuitive as Facebook, that's for sure. And if Google's not careful, they're going to have a toolbox that has so many tools that people don't know what they can possibly do. I mean, I was, in talking about this, lately I've been using a lot of Facebook Live, which very quickly builds up an audience. I can, when I was at Tiny House Jamboree this past weekend, I did a Facebook Live for took maybe 4 minutes of my life, and it ended up being seen by a little over 7,000 people. So, that's a huge return on investment, considering, I was really just standing on bleachers of a football stadium and talking and showing kind of the environment I was in. But if I were to try and do that with Google Plus, I'd have to set up a Hangout, and then I'd have to record it. I'd have to do the Hangout on air, and then it would be seen live by my YouTube people. So that's kind of a separate platform in itself. So yeah, now that we kind of talk it out, I get it. But I agree with you. I think Facebook is becoming less and less of an important place for a brand to be. But what I want to know from you is, your niche market is tiny houses. How did you discover tiny houses? I mean, how did that become kind of your product, if I can say that?
Well, I used to live in Denver, and I had a design business at the time, and I was living high on the hog. I was living well beyond my means. And in the interim, long story short, I had a foreclosure. So then I started trying to come up with ways, once I moved here to North Carolina, how I could come up with ways to pay cash for a house. And that's when I came across Kent Griswold's Tiny House blog. And so I would just hit refresh every day and look at that website. That was my favorite website. So I was thinking, man, I can do this pretty easy. Just pay cash out of pocket. And so then and at the same time, I was watching Dave Ramsey. I love Dave Ramsey. He's talking about money. He's talking about finances, living well below your means. And then I love tiny houses. So for me, it felt like all my skills and my interests kind of came together.
So once those came together, you thought, you know what, I've got something here that appeals to other people. How can I help other people take on life the same way that I've learned to take it on?
Exactly, yeah. I had a web design business in the past, so I knew a lot about web design. But at the same time, I thought to myself, okay, every area in real estate has a focal point somewhere on the internet, as far as buying and selling on Zillow, all these other websites, but there's nothing for the tiny house community. And that's what kind of made me think for the tiny house listings, because I realized that there's definitely a need there. There's a lot of value. And I think that's things that people would want to share, even if they're not even interested in buying the home.
Yeah, definitely.
And social media was a catalyst to that.
So you've got this business. You're able to take these tiny houses and this lifestyle and kind of project it onto people and show them a market. But of course, your listings, for lack of better terms, your listings are all over the place. They're all over the country, sometimes even into Canada and Mexico and that sort of stuff. So online was really the only way that you'd be able to get that business out there to people.
For sure. Otherwise, I'd be printing up those little magazines that are outside the grocery store that you have to pick up.
Yeah, we call those gas rags.
Right. Oh God, I call those fire starters.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So, how's the reception been? I mean, do people, I think that some people, when they look at online businesses, they kind of separate them into two or three categories. One of those categories is, hey, this is the online equivalent to junk mail. Or they look at it as, this is a resource I can't live without. Even if I'm not in the market for this product, I want to know what's going on here every day because it's constantly evolving. And then the third kind of is like, well, it's cool, but it's got its time and its place, and we're going to see it kind of come and go. Tiny House Listings has been around. How many years now have you had listings going?
At the end of this year, it'll be 6 years.
So for 6 years, you've been posting up listings of tiny houses. So I think it's safe to say you fall well into that second category where people just come and check it. Do you find that some of your tiny house listings viewers or community check back with you, not because they want to buy a house, but just because they like the service, they like to see what's available and what their options might be?
Yeah, I mean, so if you look at, I break down my traffic, it's 50% returning and 50% new visitors, which to have 50% returning, especially when you have a high amount of traffic, is actually pretty much off the charts. You know what I mean? Instead, because a lot of times it's flipped 80-20, where 80% is new traffic and only 20% are people that keep coming back. So that tells me that I do have an audience that's very interested in what I'm doing, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So through the course of the last 6 years, what has kind of spawned from tiny house listings? What have you been able to, or what have you been inspired to kind of start in addition to tiny house listings that's made you more of an enterprise industry rather than just a one shop deal?
Well, okay, so in the last few years, tiny houses, the audience keeps growing, and so there's little subsets of needs that people are needing, and whether or not it's services or it's products or whatever. And so every single time because I get so many emails every day, if I start to see the same email over and over, people asking the same questions, I guess I mentally archive it and say, look, there's nothing out there that's addressing all these people's issues. Let's see if I can make a smaller website. For example, a while back I did a tiny house gear. I haven't done a good job staying on top of that. So on that website, there's all kinds of products and stuff that help the tiny house community. And also, I noticed that there's a lot of people who just love to look at pictures, when it comes to the whole tiny house scene. And for me, that's more so inspirational, because people can look and see what other people are doing. So I created a website called Tiny House Swoon.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I have all kinds of websites out there, and all of them kind of service the tiny house community. Some do better than others.
Right. So what I hear you saying is kind of a piece of advice is learn what your audience is asking. Listen to those questions. Listen to those emails come in. Because, I work with a lot of clients that want to know, why should I, beyond just having a contact form for people to get in touch with me, what should I be looking for, or how should I be reading in between the lines of what people write into me or requests they make? And I think you're a good example of that in saying, hey, these are things I'm seeing on a repeating basis, so maybe there's another emerging market here that I need to pay more attention to.
Yeah, it could be a chance for since it's a business chat, it could be a chance for another revenue stream. Someone that, especially if your core business, like if you're talking other businesses off the side, if your core business has high visibility, the good thing is you can do testing. You can send traffic to these off these different ways, see what works and see what doesn't. Some things have traction, some things won't.
Yeah.
But I hate to bring up the guy, but people talk about Donald Trump, right? Oh, he's lost all these businesses. Every business person always has failed businesses.
Oh yeah, man.
You have to. Yeah, if you can strike out from the get go on every single time, you're like Confucius. It's impossible. So yeah, I kind of went away with that, but still.
No, it's all right. It's all right. So, thinking in terms of a business standpoint and people trying to turn their passion into something that they can market, whether it be through social media or through some kind of online representation. In your opinion, what's important now? What do people need to be looking at? 10, not 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, if you didn't have a website, you started becoming archaic. People started going, well, is it even a real business? They're not on the web. What are people saying now? Are they saying, hey, if they don't have a Facebook page, they're not on the web? Hey, if they don't have a Twitter account, they're not a real business? What do you feel like that indicator is that says to people, this dude means business? He's for real.
Yeah, I mean, 20 years ago, if you didn't have a yellow page ad that was like, like a little bit bigger font with yellow behind it, the business section, you weren't a real business, And like 5 years ago, people started saying, hey, you don't need a website anymore. You got social media. Now we're starting to find out that's not true.
Right.
But the thing is, different businesses have different appeals to them. For example, on my one website, Tiny House Swoon, believe it or not, I get more social traffic from that site from Stumbled Upon than anywhere else, and I don't even have a Stumbled Upon account.
Yeah, that's odd.
So, which I didn't even know that website was still around. But yeah, so you have to kind of just play with things and give, like, to me, one of the best things like that I've done lately is to have a tool on my website where people, this has been around for a long time, to let people pin a particular listing that you're talking about, or your audience's example, a blog post or whatever, and let them do what they want to do with it.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I know a lot of people ask questions like, do I need a Pinterest account? I don't even post to Pinterest, but I get lots of traffic from that because I've set up a stream from wherever people to my website to Pinterest, and I've allowed them to go pin things from my website.
Yeah,
so you gotta just try everything.
That's an interesting thing that you bring up. I talk to people about Pinterest. I talk to, potential clients and things about their Pinterest presence. You don't have to so much be a pinner as you do have to make your stuff available for pinning. Especially if your products or what you create or your services are highly visual sort of services. Let people pin those things, because then you're getting that residual traffic from people saying, oh, that's a really cool idea. That really looks good. And I want to pin that. And then they end up following the page right back to you. So it's a good idea to, to make that sort of thing happen. I'm glad you brought that up. In my case, like with some of the things that I do in terms of business, I try, and especially when I blog, because I don't blog a lot, maybe once every week, once every 2 weeks, only when it's really, really something special, content that's special. I try and make the image something that people would want to pin and something that people would want to remember. That way they pin it and others will pin it and start following it back in a way that they wouldn't possibly on Facebook if I just posted it as a status update, because maybe it didn't even make it to their news feed, with the algorithms that are available.
Right.
So I have a question for you off the cuff. This is an unrehearsed off the cuff question. A lot of conversation's been going around the business world lately, especially with millennials, if you will, about the idea of a side hustle. There was a day when all of us had a side hustle. We'd have a day job and we had these little side hustles, clients on the side, that sort of stuff. The argument now is that in today's market, we're literally having to turn our side hustles into full-time jobs because we can't afford the lifestyle that's been created around us, whether directly or indirectly. What's your take on the side hustle? Do you think that all good business people maintain a good side hustle just in case they might stumble upon an idea, or just because it keeps them sharp?
Yeah, that is on the cuff. I really haven't thought about that a lot. I was listening to NPR the other day. They were talking about that exact subject. They were saying that we're in the sharing economy now, and that you got Airbnb, you got all these things where all these people, which are creating side hustles for people. If you got a backyard, you can rent a little space out in your yard.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think with the internet, the way things are, there's lots of opportunities for side hustles. And to me, it's a kind of a shame that it's come to that, to be honest with you, because steady jobs are much more harder to come by. And I think what's happened is so many things have changed so quick with the internet But when I say quick, I mean a decade or longer, that people are still trying to figure it out. You still have the same system of education that was there well before the internet came about. I think that's probably why you have such high levels of unemployment. But to give you a concrete answer on what you're saying, I'm not sure I'm qualified to answer that.
I hear you. I hear you. All right. Well, to wrap up our time together, just a couple of quick questions, no brainers. In fact, I don't even want you to think about them. What's your favorite? I like to do this when I do written interviews too. It's like kind of a playback to James Lipton's At the Actor Studio, where he does the 10 questions at the end. So tell us, what's your favorite color?
Clear.
Favorite food?
Beer.
Favorite sound?
Cha-ching.
What's your least favorite sound?
Fart.
What's your favorite expression?
Show me the money.
Least favorite expression?
I can't do that.
And then last question, what is it you want to be when you grow up?
Stable.
I hear you. All right. Thank you so much. We've been talking with Stephen Harrell of Tiny House Listings, who shared with us his thoughts on business, how he got to where he's at. Make sure you check out www.tinyhouselistings to see that webpage, and then follow all the places it takes you. It's a great world he's created online, not just for tiny houses, but for everybody. So Stephen, on behalf of myself and all of my listeners, thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. It was fun.
Absolutely.